This is an Australian-founded company. It works in, I suppose one of the ways I describe it is like the Airbnb of office workplaces. It's not a co-working space. It's when you've got the spare room, the spare desk in your office. Dorpee are the people who can help you share it out. Now, tell me, it must have been a bit tough for Dorpee over the last 3 months in terms of people being at work. They've all been at home. How's it been for you and the company?
Yeah, it's actually been a really interesting time. Thank you both for having me on today. I'm glad I'm talking about Dorpee. One of the important points that we always like to mention when we're talking about Dorpee is that Dorpee was actually designed by working with Australia's largest employers around what's the model of work potentially going to look like in the future. And this was all pre the whole COVID situation. So recognizing that the working from home model had a whole lot of challenges to do with mental health and isolation and stress, and even the safety of some of the workplaces that when people were working from home in the environments they could be working in. But recognizing as well that the fixed office space has got a lot of challenges in itself as well. So what we tried to do with Dorpee was to work with some of those large employers around coming up with a model that we saw as being the model going forward into the future. And we noticed that there is so many businesses out there that could be fantastic environments for people to work, and actually environments that could really inspire people a lot more than the mundane and repetition vanilla office that we've all become very accustomed to. So initially we planned to launch in around February, and then COVID came along. And that meant that we've moved our launch back, and we're in launch actually at the moment. But what COVID's meant for us has actually been almost like a slingshot pulling back. It's really broken down some of those inbred assumptions that both employers and employees have had around what a workspace really needs to look like, and do we actually need to be in an office? And it's also broken down some of those stigmas as well around working remotely. And when you couple that into some of the businesses that have come on board Dorpee as potential workspaces, what we're seeing is a lot of those businesses that we initially thought could really benefit from having an additional line of revenue are now really struggling for survival. And so when they see Dorpee as a potential way to monetize further space within their business, they're seeing that as an absolute ray of hope going into the future. So some of the potential workspaces and venues that we've seen come on board are obviously include things like traditional offices and co-working spaces, but we've got things like cafes, restaurants, hotels. We've got some gin distilleries on board. We've got play centres. We've got one organisation that's set up mobile pods in a laneway that you can work within. And what that's giving people is such a diverse range of different workspaces that they can work in, so that work can not only be geographically convenient, but also suit both the style of work that they may enjoy working in, but also their personal circumstances. So we're talking about the young parent who's got a child who wants to work with their team, but can't because they've got their child with them. So by working at, for example, one of the play centres that's on board the Dorpee platform, they can now do that. The person who likes fresh air on a sunny day like myself, or likes 80s music, or whatever it is that makes you tick, we've got it now on Dorpee.
I'm not sure how productive I'd be working in a gin distillery, but I do like the idea that you can take control of the playlist by picking the place with the 80s music. It's fantastic that you must be feeling vindicated about your business model, but tell us from a consumer point of view, the office worker, how does it work for me when I want to find a space? Just take us through that process.
Yeah, sure. So you can either be engaging with Dorpee when you're an employee. You can either engage in two different ways. One is that you might be a freelancer, or you might be a small startup yourself. And so you can just simply go to the Dorpee.com website or download the app, and you can sign on to a monthly plan. And that monthly plan is effectively like your flexible lease. So that lease gives you a bucket of credit, and you can use that on any of the Dorpee network of venues, any style you want, as often as you want, and you're just really drawing down on those credits. And if you don't use up all those credits, that's fine. You can carry credits forward as well to the next month. The other way might be that your employer has actually signed on as a Dorpee partner employer. And what that basically means is that your employer has actually signed on to Dorpee, and your employer has those credits. and your employer can then add you onto their plan. And when you go and book Dorpee venues, wherever you want to work today, your employer is actually paying for those credits. But the great thing is for the employer that they still maintain line of sight of where all their employees are working. They can feel comfortable that their employees are working in an environment that's safe. They can see that their employees are still working together. So we have things like co-location metrics and other deep insights within that employer dashboard that really gives the employer some visibility about where people are. And as a result, we're seeing some of Australia's largest companies in various stages of coming on board Dorpee at the moment, which has just been amazing.
Before we let you go, I do want to ask, what's the most exciting workplace that you've signed up? Tell us about it and why we should all be working there.
Well, one of the workspaces, as I mentioned, is a gin distillery in Mildura. So I've had to work in Mildura on and off various times and got pretty sick of being squashed in a crummy hotel room with nothing to look at except a pile of towels. So this gin distillery is called Fossey's. It's one of the boutique growing gin distilleries in Australia at the moment. And it's in an 1850s building, and you can sit on a cold day in front of an open fire or in a leafy courtyard, and they've got private offices and a larger meeting room that they've converted in the back to mobilise as Dorpee workspaces. So really taking our mind to where you want to work. I mean, who would want to work in the same office day in, day out, or in a hotel room or in a car when you can work in some amazing places like that? And the list is endless for the fantastic places you can work on Dorpee.
Simon, it sounds like a great idea, and we wish you all the best for it. It actually sounds like the timing will really benefit, as we're just so accustomed to now working remotely. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you both.